So from my heart to yours, thank you for coming to the World Dharma Forum on Maui, in my beloved Summer Richardson's mansion, a celestial, radiant, emotional, existential, radiant diamond mansion that we're on, in this house, on this island, in this incredible, complicated, maddening miracle of existence, right? So unthinkable is the absurd intelligence of this thing that we're embedded in, right? I'd love to love, but at the same time it's juxtaposed with genocide. Come on, man. Bad design. You know what I mean? So God is a really multi-complex creature to throw at us these juxtapositions, these radical contradictions, right? And yet at the same time, probably everyone here aspires to a more higher, radiant, intelligent, emotionally awake, spiritually developed, mindfully intelligent presence. We care about how we impact each other, right? You know, we care, C-A-R-E, we care. And that's why I'm here today at the forum. This is the last one. I was saying earlier, just briefly, just to reiterate, and then we'll dive into my opening little talk. This isn't a conversation necessarily, although one could easily frame human beings talking with each other as conversational. At the same time, I use the word forum, which kind of takes the teacher out of the dynamic. I am not a teacher, even with a lowercase t. I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to observational intimacy. I'm kind of in the world of the apprentice with everyone and everything. I was brought up as an artist. I spent time in Europe. I love the idea of understanding through observation and feeling, felt presence. Words are necessary, but in a monastery where I lived briefly for 4 years, everything was an observational felt frequency. We were told to look, see, feel, and know that which is occurring in the moment. People often ask me, what is meditation? Are we okay? See for yourself that which is occurring here and now, which is obviously a be here now cliche. But you can be here now and be in Kihei. You can be on Mars. You can be an apartheidist. You can be a racist in the moment. So it's not just being present at all. It's about being intelligently here with what? Discernment, radical inquiry. I would call it DQ. What is DQ? Deep questioning. You know, these all sound like cliches until you're on the front lines of someone who wants to assassinate you because you're a Jew, or a Ukrainian, or Palestinian, or an American, or an anti-vaxxer. I mean, there's so many ways in which we polarize existence through ideas, right? Ideation, ideation, ideation. So meditation is the study of ideation. And what goes on in ideation that informs us to do things that are absolutely contrary to conscience. Hitler was a good man. He was really, really into ethnically cleansing the world of things that don't belong to the human race. There's been arguments for that, Mr. Gates. Okay? People can get really deranged by being here now. So that is like way, way 2 days ago. We okay? So this is my way of saying that, like, my way of rolling today is so extemporaneous. If I'm prepared, I'm in propaganda. at that point. It's like, I don't want Tantra. I want radical intimacy, novelty, improvisational intimacy, naked here and nowness, in the truth of us both being responsible, all of us being responsible as we can, not responsible by demand, being as responsible as we can to a couple of words that really make my heart sing. Dignity. I just really rock with people who embody stature. I'm not saying they wear a tie or that they've got a label behind their name as a PhD, but people ask me often as a monk, how did they teach meditation in the monastery? Are you with me? I'll go about 10 more minutes and we'll open it up. People think, do you sit down? Do you watch your breath? Do you cross your legs? Do you open your eyes? Do you close your eyes? Do you sit in a particular position? Yes, yes, yes. No, 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 no. What do? The instruction for the boys and girls, the elders and the youth together was all about one thing. Sitting down as quickly as possible in the seat right in front of you, on the floor, and occupying your innate dignity. Tell me that's not rad. Okay? As a Dharma practice, as a spiritual practice. What do you do for practice? I'm mindful. Yeah, right. My windshield wipers work better than that. Okay. That was actually funny. But innate dignity. I mean, if I were to ask you, which I often heard in monasteries with the teachers, occupy your innate dignity when you sit. No. Next instruction. I was in a monastery where there was it was called no time off meditation. You talk about wanting to run fast. Let me tell you, I wanted to escape when they said, you mean there's no off time? There's no breaks, there's no cafeteria? Zero. All postures. Standing, sitting, walking, reclining. In the fifth one, you'll never guess what the fifth one was. Everything in between. Which means reaching, turning, looking, bending. Oh my God. Occupy your innate dignity in all postures. That's the basis of awakening in the moment, here and now. And the word innate is a very important quality because it's not transformational. It's about releasing into the naturalness that we don't have to produce oxygen to breathe. There's an ecosystem that we're embedded in, and it's a cognitive one as well as physical. So when you think of that, it's like, whoa, that's very interesting. The next 10-day retreat, in order to develop these qualities that I need to refine, I can be right here, right now, as oxygen is in my lungs, and occupy the highest, most radiant state of being before I enter the 10-day retreat. How interesting is that? Spiritual, not spiritual capitalism, all in good intention. You know, like psychedelic assisted dying. What about psychedelic assisted awakening? What about trans psychedelic assisted intimacy? What about being in innate dignity as basis of being? And that was the basis of being in a monastery with nearly, sometimes up to 10,000 people in silence. Imagine being all of Makawao, being nuns and monks wearing aloha shirts and all kinds of Mickey Mouse things. And no one's talking, no one's making really eye contact, everyone's barefoot. Everything is being provided for by the rest of the islands. And all you do is occupy innate dignity. as Dharma practice. That's pretty special. That's where I grew up after growing up in a Syrian American household in Boston with Syrian Lebanese immigrants who came to New York in 1919. A marriage that was 30 years age gap. My grandmother, who was a mystical Christian with 7 daughters, 7 sisters, 25 grandchildren. I was somewhere nestled, somewhere lower end. And we all sat around this big table, often in these family, not reunions, but family presence. We all lived there, and we talked openly about everything. And as I said earlier, there was no shadow to process. It was all present time openness. And I think that is the most difficult thing for me, is the curriculum, the architecture, the cultural expectations around what it means to be present with someone else. And so we need assisted psychotherapeutic presence to open our ability to be more intimate with ourselves as we transition into the unknown. Why wait is my thing. And why use anything external when it's all internal? Take it off others is a very big thing for me. Take it off psychedelics. Take it off money. Take it off other people. And I'll explain what I mean by take it off others. The word Kalyanamita, the South African term that was introduced to me by Reverend Desmond Tutu, Ubuntu. I'm not sure if any of you know the word Ubuntu. I am because of you. Together we are something larger than each of us individually. Relational wisdom that exceeds individual ideas of self. And then the last word is bodhisattva, or in Buddhist Pali, bodhisatta. Do you have heard that word? Like, for example, the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, the 14th incarnation of the Dalai Lama, is known as a bodhisattva, which means a being who has said to his or her most intimate DNA intelligence, the deepest rooted GPS of their being, that I want to be fully awakened as a Buddha. And I want to declare, I want to achieve the highest possible cognitive radiance that consciousness is capable of inhabiting in this context known as existence or samsara, which is pretty amazing idealism to think of that level of excellence. But very few people ever reverse the word bodhisattva to save all sentient beings to saving one, yourself. Become your own bodhisattva. That to me is my new way halfway through this opening presentation. It's my new way of integrating modern form mindful intelligence, which I call MQ. My Dharma teacher in Burma, Sayadaw U Pandita, who is a student of Mahasi Sayadaw, who inherited that tradition after Mahasi Sayadaw passed away in 1982. I ordained with him in New York City in 1979. I went back to Burma with him and a group of monks and lived in his monastery, and I was with him when he passed away. When he passed away, the next man was U Sujata, next in line. I was with him during those 7 days in transition, and while in person talking, I was in the room, he fell over and died. The next in the lineage was Sayadaw U Pandita, who then was assigned to take over the entire monastic tradition of the Mahasi Sayadaw lineage, which had about 700 branch monasteries around the world. And he was appointed to be my teacher. We became best friends. No other human in my life came close to the resonant, intimate, wise, curious, satirical, comedic, literary, genius, crazy wisdom, intimate, psychic, telepathic communion of being with this man who absolutely, for the first time in my life, I felt totally adored. You ever been really like adored? Well, it was the first time that an elder man really adored me, because I thought I was kind of traumatized, excessive, inarticulate, a bit brash, heavily addicted, and somewhat crazy from brain trauma in a car accident at 15 years old, going through a windshield at 45 miles an hour and hitting a telephone pole, and never knowing that I was just completely immersed in opioids until eventually I went on acid. You are so dosed up with dullness that you're almost brain dead. And on that day, I stopped every F-U-C-K-I-N-G addiction. Thank you, Tim Leary. Thank you, Ramdas. And the next thing I saw was consciousness is source. If you know your mind, you know what you will say, you'll know what not to say. When you know your mind, you'll know what you think and you'll know what not to think. You'll know how to interrupt the thought. You'll know how to subdue the thought. You'll know how to repeat the thought more eloquently, more intimately, if you know your mind through MQ, mindful intelligence. When you're speaking, when you're thinking, when you're acting, before, during, and after, if you've got an MQ filter, you've got deep Q, deep questioning going on. Is this true, Mr. Fauci? Let me affirm to you the Fifth Amendment. I refuse to lie in front of God. However, I will tell you the truth in front of Satan. The evidence is there. Give me the presidential palace, and then I'll tell you everything that I'm not telling you, because I refuse to tell a lie in front of the world. Like, can you repeat that? Like, people are so folded. MQ functions to unfold. That's my point. Unfolding into natural, radiant intimacy. I don't know about you, and I'm coming to the end of my little opening rave here. I love intimacy. I'm not sure what it means. I love closeness, sort of. You know, close on consensual terms, right? But not really. You want people to be truthful. I mean, truthful over intimacy is far better than deceit and coercion, isn't it? I want to know that I can really trust you. But why do I say you rather than I want to know that I can really trust me? So I'm going to revert through the rest of the afternoon to taking it off other Dharma. And what does it mean to start really, really, really intimately validating, elevating, anointing the innate intelligences of your own being so that you can feel existentially awake in this somatic infinite field of beingness and know that you are abiding in truth. Because the soul of dignity for me is how honest you are. And I'm not saying I'm 100%, because I work on the word, and I'll close with this, spectrum, not autism. But many people talk about non-duality. In Theravada Abhidhamma, which is Buddhist psychology, and experiential Buddhist meditation, which has been I can't say I don't like to use the word training because it sounds like I've got something special, but I was lucky enough to be in the vicinity of people who shared with me teachings. That spectrum means that whatever you say, there are infinite gradations of that as true. So you take the lie out of existence. That's innate dignity. You with me with that? It's not like you have to become radically truthful. You need to eradicate how you bypass self-deceit, self-deception, by being intimately aware of how you create an equation of comparison of what you are to what you're not. Spectrum in infinite gradation is called unconditional. I'm unconditionally honest in my frailty and my flaws and my openness with you. It's a very different way of saying that I'm committed to being truthful. And the last part of this is that I'm learning that I really love in people, and it's so vulnerable to even bring up, is, I don't know about you, but there's some part of me, bear with me, some part of me is naive. You know, I tend to believe people. And so I don't understand manipulation sometimes. Does that make sense? I don't understand how someone may have an agenda with me or with anyone, but I'm just being vulnerable here. And so it's my way of saying how easily hurt I become if I feel something that's slightly amiss that leaves me feeling mistrustful. And so how I asked myself this last 6 months, how do I embrace that as a Dharma practice? By taking it off of them as a unrecognized potential shadowed expectation and putting it on me as a proactive style of presence, which comes back to, do you follow me? Which means love and give unconditionally. That way you're immune to everything and anything. And I know that sounds a little bit like I live on Maui. Or that I've been, overly dosed and not whatevered to be more human, but I want to know that I want to know in my heart that I can love you despite your flaws, your shortcomings, your weaknesses, your shadow. That's my Dharma edge today, is I want to, even though I feel that you may not be in the most authentically loving intention, that your love may be intermittent, there may even be some form of usury, I don't even know. I don't want to occupy that dialogue in my own mind because I suffer as a result of that perception. Do you with me? And I am done with self-inflicted dukkha. The Buddha's first noble truth. Self-inflicted dukkha is the only reason I teach the Dhamma. Come and see for yourself how you create your own kingdom and your own cave. Take it off others. So the word bodhisattva, the word kalyanamitta, which means best friend. We all want to fall in love with our best friend, right? But how do you be the best friend for someone who's not being really a best friend, but who imagines that they want to be your best friend? Do you sit them down in an open moment of MDMA-assisted honesty? Do you take a walk on the beach in Kihei in the rain and cry together and not say a word and just basically reboot your hearts? Or do you do what you need to do for your own interior world by occupying what I call RT, radical trust? Really radical trust that that person beneath that flaw, beneath that perception, is beautiful, well-intended. The Buddha said there are more stars in the sky than people that I have killed in the name of truth. There are more tears in the ocean that people have killed in the name of freedom and democracy and truth. My words. Infinite flawed, infinite inability. There is no first beginning to your confusion. Take it off others to be so prominent in your assessment of her inability because she is being inauthentic and using you, coercing you, taking from you, deceiving from you. The word boundaries come up, right? How do you co-occupy existence with cruelty, with apartheid, with ageism, with deceit, with Palestine, with Netanyahu, with Trump, with Ukraine, with Burma? How do you do that? Challenging, right? So I'm going to end right here. The operating system within my soul is MQ, mindful intelligence. For 55 years of my Dharma journey around the world, from monasteries to war zones to the study of genocide, where I've been a fledgling student, to the books I've written, to the lectures I've given, to the interviews that have been asked of me, it all discerns and funnels into the word mindful intelligence. And it's a word phrase that I came up with based upon my Dharma teacher, and I'll end here, I promise. Seda U Pandita had a student named Danny Goleman, who was one of the popularizers of the word EQ, emotional intelligence. I introduced Danny to Seda U Pandita in Boston. And he encouraged Danny to expand beyond EQ to SQ, spiritual intelligence. And we all got together and decided that spiritual intelligence was a little bit too Maui, a little bit too woo-woo. So we figured MQ, mindful intelligence, was far different than being mindful. And the word intelligent, okay, so that's the basis of your Dharma. And that's, people ask me, how do you practice the Dharma? I practice MQ. Would you talk about that? And we have upcoming this next 6 months, a World Dharma Institute that we're developing with a master class that's going to be offered to the world in multiple languages, thanks to AI, on the development of MQ. Mindful intelligence in context in all postures, all states, all senses, all times, all degrees of complexity, for the elevation of freedom and the overcoming of self-inflicted harm and violence. This, to me, is the end of war, and that's why I'm a human being, to end violence. My last book I wrote, Politics of the Heart. People ask me, which book should you read? I wish Amazon would just give them away freely. Politics of the Heart. if you want to know what I'm saying and you really want to really look deeply into what I spent nearly a year if I were to die, I know it's melodramatic. I've said everything I had to say in this book, Politics of the Heart. Nonviolence in the age of atrocity. I said, what does nonviolence mean today? Is it even possible? And the last was psychedelic activism to end war. No offense to those who are dying. We're all dying. But the people who need psychedelic support are the ones who are committing genocide. We need to take it higher. Okay, so that's a little bit of my riff. That's a little bit of my opening. I want to allow you to just simply occupy and pause, feel what you feel. I'm so honored to be in your company. I'm blessed to be in this beautiful temple of Summers where I've spent years and years talking and relating and crying and communing over all kinds of things, as little as old age, disease, and death. You know, we all have. So whatever is in your heart that you want to talk about, please take a moment. I'll be happy to talk with you, happy to listen. Anything you want to know that I've said to repeat, any personal questions, it's all yours to engage. So thank you for allowing me to speak so openly with you and to be in your company today.
Thank you, Alan.
Questions from someone who had never asked a question?
Well, then that's not me.
Okay.
But I'll ask one anyway. Have you ever had a dialogue with any of the so-called politicians that your book may be addressing about the idea of psychedelics and politics and stopping genocide, war, etc.? Has there been any politician come forth who has read that book and
Lotus, you are an angel. That is like if there could be a question on earth that could be formed, you just asked it for me. I am begging for that dialogue. I gave a talk recently, not a talk, excuse me. I'm going to take my time with this because this is really important. I was interviewed recently, this is not name dropping, but I was recently interviewed on the BBC. And I normally talk about issues and about people, but I rarely ever talk to the person. And I chose on this particular interview to talk directly to Donald Trump about this very issue. And I also chose to talk directly to his beloved wife, Melania, on the interview. I am speaking to you, beloved. May it digitally find its way into your psyche, not your inbox, your psyche. And you know, Lotus, I really do believe that if any of these politicians around the world or leaders, men or women, prime ministers, presidents, Pope Leo, the Dalai Lama himself, I've met numerous times, he's written forwards to my book. I would love to have an open dialogue. I've actually written a proposal to have a global summit to talk about these things. If they heard the wisdom of what could happen as a result of ingesting, injecting, or both, the right protocol of various substances with the right context, set and setting, primarily women, elder women holding space with the right intention, I do believe that we could change the world within a month. Absolutely. I think we're that close, Lotus. So your question is not like just a question. I have been directing this as much as I can, and I'm saying it again right now, pass what I'm saying directly into the inbox of President Donald Trump, to the inbox of Melania Trump, to the EU presidents and prime ministers, to the United Nations, to the dictator in Burma, Ming Online. I've written a letter to Ming Online in a book, the dictator in Burma, asking for a dialogue. I've written letters in books that have been printed advocating how you go about ingesting the right amount with the right context to change your mind, directed at presidents, that have been published. I just wish people would pick those things up and send them out and go viral. But they're there, and I'm saying it. I've been saying it now for 25 years. I did my first show at the MAC in 2001, in which I imagined giving a high dose of psychedelic to a president at that time, it may have been Mr. Bush, to end the Iraq War. I don't know how people can commit murder when your heart is wide open. And if it's a molecule away, you might sound naive and like, no, let's give it a go. Mr. Netanyahu, I'll come to your home with a group of women and help you with a low-dose curriculum for the course of a week or a couple of weeks to just experiment to see if it shifts your attitudinal interior space to reconsider that talking to human beings, despite the certainty that they're going to kill you or that you need to kill them, is the protocol for freedom and democracy and justice. Killing is so obsolete that it's embarrassing to me as a man to even have to say that. That we even have to use these words is barbaric. And I'll end with this point. I was drawn to Burma to meditate, to look at my mind. What it meant was to know your mind is the most important task of your life. That's what I was told. In the absence of knowing your mind, Alan, look around the world and see what happens based upon thinking that you know your mind, and look what comes out of your body as a result of your mind. That was the motivation to stop, call off the future, sit, walk, occupy presence, feel, see, know, change, co-create, repeat. MQ it. Are you with me? Okay. 2 years into my radical interruption of my life, to be in that country, this is way back before there was anything hygienic. I had dengue fever and malaria and you name it, to meditate. But a man came into the monastery by the name of U Tin U. And I was told secretly, because you don't talk too much in a monastery, this is the former general of the army under the dictator of the country. Whoa. He'd just been released from 6 years of solitary confinement. He was the dictator's best friend. They were playing golf on the 9th hole. And the secret police circled the hole and took him to prison with nothing but his body. No mattress, nothing. Okay, when he was released, the second day he came to the monastery, so he didn't look as if he was a threat to the man who had imprisoned him. Pretty smart. He was given a room next to mine. He was 25 years my elder. He hadn't talked in 6 years. I was like talking to myself nonstop, singing, I couldn't get the music out of my head. Jimi Hendrix and The Who and Black, you name it. It was like, and sex and masturbation and drugs and cocaine and LSD and art and painting. He hadn't talked. And so here's an American, one of the first allowed into the country in decades, other than diplomats. He downloads what it was like to be in a solitary cell for 6 years as the general of the army into this young little fucking maverick's mind. And he educated me about the psychology of dictatorship in a matter of about 2 months. Alan, you live in an authoritarian culture. What does that mean? He explained the nuances of that. You ever heard of colonialism? I mean, I grew up in Virginia. That was near Williamsburg. Our country was occupied by a genocidal colonialist occupation for 121 years. 3 wars. Our people were subjugated, tortured, belittled, raped, imprisoned, starved to death by the Brits. You ever heard of the word generational trauma? Didn't that originate with Cabo Made somewhere? Okay, this is 1981, 1982. So he's explaining all this to me as I'm trying to watch my breath and meditate. Anyway, years go on, I get thrown out of the country because I'm associated with him by the dictator. They don't trust me. I went, Jesus Christ, I just lost my family again. I was so heartbroken. Came back to America. I want to be a monk. I don't want to be here. I don't like America. I love America. I don't want to be here. I just want to be back in Burma. Went back to Bangladesh, the embassy. They gave me a 7-day visa. They let me stay for 3 more months. Threw me back out. Back in again. Threw me back out. Back in again. For a year and a half. Threw me back out permanently. 1988, 8/8/88, August 8th, the most important date in Burma's history. A beloved in my life is known by that date. She's born on that date. People born on that date, that's like the most epic date in human history in Burma. Burma's entire population rose up in unison against dictatorship, domination, violent patriarchal control. It's kind of invisible in our culture, but not really, is it? Look at how we occupy this land and talk to the local Hawaiians. Burma, it's like overt. You look at me the wrong way, I take all of your money. You look at me the wrong way again, I take your house. You associate with your daughter, you go to prison. Welcome to Burma. They rose up, the dictator killed nearly 10,000 people. I snuck into the country underground, met with people, blah, 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 blah. That led me on a path of revolution. That meditation isn't just about MQing, it's about caring for others. Put your compassion into action, put your love into action, right? Go out of your way to support people. Don't just give when it's convenient. Do it as a lifestyle. Your Dharma on your cushion is one thing, but your compassion is an all-day practice. There's no limit to what you can give other people, right? Make that your occupation, Alan. And Burma began to teach me that. And out of that, halfway through, a woman in Burma rose up in a violent patriarchal culture. Her name was Aung San Suu Kyi. Many of you know her, right? Okay. I was invited by a French publisher. Can you get back into the country? Bring her word to the world. Went in underground. I went to see my best friend, U Tinu, who'd been imprisoned for 11 more years in solitary confinement. Aung San Suu Kyi had just been released after 6 years of house detention. I went to U Tinu's house, surrounded by soldiers. I said, Seya, we want to bring your revolution to the world. How can we meet? How can I meet Dasu? She won the Nobel Peace Prize for her divine feminine stance. Bear with me, I have to say it. On the refusal to kill for peace. Stop voting for murder. That's where I go. Stop participating in denigration. And she was What we do is we learn the power of the human voice. Her teacher was my teacher, Sadhu Pandita. He taught her how to use the human voice as vehicle for revolution. It's not just nonviolence, it's how you speak. Tonality. Choice of words. Timing of what you say, to whom you say it. The intention of why you're saying what you say. Is it from love or coercion? Is it by design for closeness or design for extraction? And the last element, are you doing it for self-gain or are you doing it unconditionally? He taught her that musicality of how to use your voice, not just be love in action, which she coined, by the way, metta in action. How do you transform culture through the human voice? MQ is not just meditation, it's the study of frequency. Summer is a master of frequency, micro-frequency. I've never gotten treatments from anyone in the world that are more balancing, enlivening, radicalizing of safety and calmness than through this woman's grace in her research in her office here. I cannot recommend enough that you seek her out to get microfrequency because it's aligned with MQ and the frequency of consciousness. Those who study consciousness will find the revolution of the heart as priority of their presence. Aung San Suu Kyi was one of us. He introduced me to her. We did a book of conversations called The Voice of Hope in 1995 and 1996. Jump time. She's been now 5 years in solitary confinement, vilified by the patriarchy, CNN, BBC, New York Times. All lies. For 3.5 years, we don't even know that she's in breathing. 81 years old. One of my dearest friends. Numerous friends of mine have been executed, have been imprisoned, have been disappeared. Yes, am I heartbroken? I'm heartbroken. All of this that I'm sharing today comes out of the culture of Myanmar. It's not mindfulness, meditation, revolution, nonviolence, feminine-inspired, transformational, divine presence. It's the wisdom of human beingness to transform society in the most radiant, peaceful way possible for loving coexistence. That's what she was bringing in her revolution of the spirit to the people of Myanmar and to the world, her teacher and my teacher. And what I want to do at this point, before I transition, which could be tonight or it could be 30 years from now, I've got a master digital recording studio in Victoria. We're going to do a master class, an online presence, membership, and put all of these things into a sequential, easy to understand video sequence to develop. I want to bring people together. I don't want to keep talking about the vax. I don't want to keep talking about Fauci. I don't want to keep talking about Trump. I don't want to keep talking about politics. I'm off of politics. I want to talk about the human heart and transformation among those who want to hear. And I promise to close with this. My teacher said to me, Alan, you're so melodramatic. You're so convincing. There's two people walking down the road. One of them sort of looks smug and very attractive, and you're kind of like drawn in by her beauty, but she's not really making much eye contact with you, and a little bit snarly and a little bit self-centered. And the other person is just not nearly as attractive, but very jubilant and open-hearted and looks at you with like, wow, Ram Dass eyes. Who are you going to talk to? Playing with my conditioning, right? I said, I'm going to go where there's radiant joy. Alan, that's MQ in action. Speak to those who can hear and feel you, love you, and give back to you. Ubuntu. Do it together and make the world a better place. So, Mr. Trump, we are available. Melania, you have a duty to inform everyone in the Oval Office the necessity of peace through love is not weakness. It's a change and a shift of consciousness that's accessible to your husband, Melania. And do not doubt that. There have been many, many people throughout history documented who've had radical shifts in consciousness based upon deep inner transformation through various forms of catalyst, whether it be psychedelic or situational. What's his name from Israel? Ravine, Isaac Ravine?
Yeah, Isaac Rabin.
He won the Nobel Peace Prize, correct?
Yeah.
He said, if we can't talk to our enemies, who are we to talk to? He won the Nobel Peace Prize for that. The art of communication. And that to me is so central to what I think we need in society today, is open circles of open-hearted communication where deep listening is connected to deep revelation. And I think that's the missing thing that I'm really hoping goes viral in our society, circles of communion, where we get together, we listen, we talk, we revere, we grow, we go back out, and we return. Take it off others. Come together and learn together. So thank you for your question. Thank you for listening to a very long answer. Aung San Suu Kyi is an amazing human being. Just amazing. Just a beautiful mind. I mean, people often, I just recently gave a talk. I was on the border of Burma and Thailand. I was with my friends in Bangkok, and I went to the border where I'd been many years before, and I was asked to give a talk to former political prisoners in Burma, where they have a political prisoners association museum on the border. So these are prisoners who've either been released or have escaped and have come to this side into Thailand, where there's a museum that shows the photographs of tens of thousands of political prisoners over the decades who've been imprisoned or killed or executed in Myanmar. And they asked me to give a talk to the political prisoners who operate the museum. It was a bit of a challenge. And for over an hour through a translator, and I say this without exaggeration, most of the people in the room were under 40. Most of them had been imprisoned between 3 and 9 years. Every woman had been raped. They didn't move the whole hour. They were like this. And what they wanted to know from me, you knew our leaders. They're now either imprisoned or dead. What would they say to us if they were alive? What would Aung San Suu Kyi think of the situation we're in right now? That was so heartbreaking to have a question like that. But it was just a beautiful exchange. So anyway, open it up to you. I leave it to you.
I'm just so curious about your soul connection with Burma. I just wonder about your past life connection. How could it be so intense? Do you have any recollection, or do you have any sense of that?
That's an interesting question for me. it brings up the issue of how and why we're drawn to people. The serendipity of the unrecognized symmetry of the cosmos, karma, lawfulness, existential intimacy by intuitive design, why we meet, whom we meet, why we meet, why we react, why is a good person violated, why is a bad person celebrated. That kind of complex trans-algebraic insanity.
Good term. On there, trans-algebraic.
You know, I don't think anyone really knows. I mean, we've got really smart people, Stephen Hawking, you know, we've got astronomers, we've got physicists, we've got linguists, we've got psychic intuitives. I do feel in my being that there's consecutive, I want to use the word, but it's an inappropriate word, simultaneous, sublimated, intersecting intelligences that obviously right now you and I and all of us are communicating in a shared language that we learned, which we have very little memory of how we learned it. And we're also biologically programmed to discontinuity without any knowledge at all of the kill switch. So we're embedded. So it makes perfect sense that there's a lot of lawfulness that goes on, as unlawful as it feels for so many people to be violated, to be in God's kingdom. That duality, Dostoevsky said, beauty is mysterious as well as terrible. God and the devil are fighting there, and the battlefield is the human heart. That is the religion of the totality that we're embedded in. Is there, why is an Alan being drawn to Burma? I do believe in that draw. Gets right down, we okay? It gets down into, for me, a deeper, more intimate, hyper, call it superpower, intuitive sense of knowing before you act with any certainty that the truth is already arriving. But rather than having to trust and believe that, how to revise that to more harmoniously arrive at what you think you will get when you get to where you're going sooner. Could I have gotten everything in Burma without dengue fever by growing up in Boston? That level of immediacy on intuition is the missing link for me. I would never recommend someone to do what I did. Why I did it? I'm blessed. Boy, did I pay a price. Look at AI right now, the pros and cons of that, the immediacy of that intelligence, or lack thereof. I think we're in a hyper-simulated psychic intuitive symmetry that many, many of us are awakening to the innate psychic intuitive presence of being. But many of us don't understand the ethics that are involved in having that level of intuitive wisdom or lack thereof. And so ethics are very important. And psychological ethics are anyone's guess what they really mean. What does boundaries really mean? What does truth really mean? People use it, they misuse it. What does compassion really mean? I'll close with this. I'm a real fan of the psychic intuitive. I just love anyone who's willing to take the risk to feel and share something that may not seem logical. But it's kind of there, like, wow. And you meet and you go, oh my God, we both do this. Please forgive me, bring grace to the moment. You know, I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, within a few miles of Edgar Casey's foundation. the great psychic intuitive. Everyone in my town was an astrologer. Everyone was a psychic. They live in trailers, they live in mansions, they climb trees, they're kids. What's your name? I'm Venus in retrograde. It's like natural. You go there and you talk about Edgar Cayce documenting all these, going into a self-induced trance and getting it right across the world. Evidence revealed, right? So I grew up with that. And then I did acid at 15 and I went, verification, check. I got into meditation. I started to fast. I got into Ram Dass. I started to come to Maui. I went to Burma. Verification. All of a sudden, Burma is a natural psychic field where psychic is natural. Rebirth is natural. It is like intrinsic to the language that we have met numerous times in previous lifetimes. You meet people that are psychically intuitive that run 7-Eleven. It's natural because they developed it over generations and it's in the culture. It's like no big deal. I knew you in a previous lifetime. Really? What did I do? You stole my dog and I want him back. Not you. I want the dog, not you. Or like, I love you so much. We've never met. We have met so many times. Blah, blah, blah. So I went to the University of Virginia. Dr. Ian Stevenson, the great phenomenologist who studied the paranormal, rebirth, and all that kind of stuff. If you're into rebirth, I don't know if you're into rebirth. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about death and rebirth and navigation, a very important topic. And to end, it brings up the issue of RT again, radical trust versus waste your time. And there's a word in Buddhist psychology called sampapalapa. And I've added the word sampapalapawasa, which means circular conversations. And to study the nature of circular conversations that don't tend to edification are a very important psychology. That's the contraband to the psychic. Because you got to be radically willing to be courageously in a felt resonant presence with unusual information that's often contrary to what someone's saying. One of the reasons why I disassociated with people when I was in Bali during a hearing period and microdosing there a lot, I could hear their subconscious. I could hear what they weren't saying. Not far-fetched, right? So I had to step back. So how to get to the truth more intimately with greater trust than to go through the serendipity of having to go all the way across the world and risk Turkey, Iran, vilification, war, sickness, diarrhea, cholera in order to watch your mind.
Sounds radical.
And this is where the digital world comes in. This is why we're going to develop the World Dharma Online Institute. I want to put it online so that you in your home, I don't consider myself special, but I am going to leave a legacy of what I call World Dharma, which is the evidence of my own clumsy, awkward, maverick, rebellious, artistic, existential savant, natural improvisational presence. And this is, I promise with this one, practice improvisational presence to develop your intuition. Trust in the spontaneity of a radical truth-sharing moment that reveals the seduction of concealment and of collusion with ignorant patterns. Dissolve, just like in a moment right now, we're in a movie and the lights were switched on by Summer and said, guess what? It's just all a cinema. Where did the cinema go? What's left is radical psychic intelligence. I think we know something so rich, so deep, just like that, the on switch can turn on the radiant switch of global peace, maybe even universal peace. If we just are willing, keep on courageously being true to yourself. That's the way I talk to myself. Like, what do I feel throughout my body? Feel it again, know it, live with it, and be a generous expression of what you see that the other person may not see. You see them being manipulative, being coercive. Unconditionally love them. And no need to even process. I'm into zero process. So thank you for asking the question. I think I kind of didn't answer it, but I tried. Take your
We've
time.
had some wonderful conversations about navigation and rebirth that I'm beginning to understand. And always I've thought of rebirth as you die and you're reborn. But you've given me an entirely new experience of that. And one day we were having a conversation and I had some revelation and I said, "Oh, that's a rebirth." And you said, "Yes." So we're continually rebirthing. Doesn't necessarily mean. So if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I'm going to really. I wrote an essay about this. Rebirthing. Is this interesting to everyone? Are we okay?
I've had 2 near-death experiences in 1 year. I'm very interested.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Those of you who may or may not know, I have to go to the washroom real quick. Can you pause and just take a breather and this is such an important
It's
question.
a great
Do you
question.
want to turn your
I'm going to leave it on so that people can take a breather online too.
Okay.
Be right back.
Thank you for asking. I hoping you would go there to the whole rebirth concept of birthing, rebirthing, initiation, which seems to be occurring for everybody as the testing happens.
Well, it was such a powerful moment for me because as we were talking, I was having this revelation about something. I looked at Alan and I said, "So this is a rebirth?" And he said, "Yes, absolutely, right now." And that we were continually having a rebirth until we rebirth into another incarnation. So it's just
So
very
you liken that to a radical shift of consciousness?
yes. Yes.
Is that how we would describe it?
Yeah. And another thing that he said to me recently is I was upset about something that was happening with some friends and I had some judgment and it wasn't that I wanted to be right, but I wanted to be right about what they were doing. And he used this analogy about the movie theater and all of that is going on over there. And then suddenly the lights come on and that movie is over and it has nothing to do with me. And that was another rebirth experience for me because suddenly I could see that I was creating this trauma for myself or this, maybe we don't want to use the word trauma because we're moving in a different direction.
It's a big word right now.
But anyway, I was just sharing some of the conversations that we've had.
So shall we dive back in?
Mhm.
Everyone's cool?
Maybe wait for Lily because she's
Oh,
very
wait for
interested
Lily,
in
okay.
the subject.
Well, just the issue of birth. The Buddha was said to have addressed that phenomenon. That was the reason why he taught, that there was birth, aging, and death. What is this? What is being reborn? What is birth? What is death? And what is in between birth and death? What are these events? The study of all that was called the Dhamma. That's what the Buddha's teachings was. It's not Buddhism. It's the study of what happens to existence, human consciousness, from birth to death, and for the more advanced forms of Dhamma training, post-death, which they call rebirth. But rebirth is not an accurate term in Buddhist psychology because there's no one who's ever born, which is a very foreign concept to most people. And if it's intriguing to you, just in essence, and don't hesitate to be confused, Buddhism's unique diamond of wisdom for me is that existence is without centrality. There is no soul. There's just nothing but infinite, interconnected intelligence, and that's called the Dhamma. To study that intersecting intelligence is called the study of the Dhamma. But there is no middle to it. There's no beginning to it. There's no end to it in the way in which we think of as endings. Because there's no one in the middle of your mind right now listening to these words, that is the meaning of non-centrality. There is no SELF. There are conditions that, when configured, give a radical, illusory appearance of an individual participating in something in a context that's external to themselves. Are you with me? But that is all perceptual illusion. There is no individual. There are just conditions, any more than there is a wave that started in Japan that crashed on the shores of Hawaii. There are just conditions that give rise to the arising of water being met by conditions crossing the ocean. There is no wave, a succession of conditions. You follow me? There is no fire that's intrinsic without wood, fuel, and air. Fire does not have a soul. It's a conditioned phenomena. Human beings, life, animals, trees, birds, devas, Brahmins, existence are conditioned phenomena without central figures. But it's configured in such a way based on conditions to behave, to think, to speak, and to act 99% of the time against one's own best interest. So basically what you think of as control is an illusion based upon the normalcy of a culture that's driven by madness. Monasteries exist to unravel from madness, to see more clearly the truth of the situation, to then overcome successively how you create your own suffering. You may think that anger is legitimate, but when you externalize it, all it does is criticize something outside of your mind that actually hurts you first. And so you pick up a piece of hot coal and throw it at someone, but you burn yourself first. And some people like to be burned. Buddhism is built on radical self-responsibility to look, to see, to feel, to know, to change, and to live in a reality according to the truth of phenomena, not the illusion of what you think of it. Self is an illusion. Death is an illusion. Birth is an illusion. Rebirth is an illusion. Really? Don't take my word for it, the Buddha said. Ehi pasiko wupinaiko pachatang vedatabo bunyahiti. Come and see for yourself what is true. Only through your own awakening will you understand what confines and what releases. Look carefully at the nature of one's own mind to see what you call self. Is it verifiable through direct experience? Where do you see inside of yourself, Alan Clements, that self? A succession of phenomena. A sound is heard through your ears, through something external to yourself. Without air, it would not reverberate. You hear it on your ear. You know the sound in your mind. You hear what you think created the sound as an image in your mind. A dog barking. A sequence of conditions. Now where did it go? Summer turned the lights on. The cinema is over. The narration of the dogs barking external to myself, annoying me, the lights went on through MQ. Conditioned phenomena without centrality, with mindful awareness, it evaporates based on the condition of anicca. All things are impermanent. A momentary experience of what's known as vimutti, freedom. The Buddha taught dukkha and vimutti, self-generated suffering and the freedom from it. That's all. And so the whole notion of birth and death is all based upon the last part of the question, I think, and we'll come around to more questions. Buddhists that I associate with, and it's not like Buddhism, I don't represent Buddhism. I'm a kind of like a trans-Buddhist something or other. For example, I'll give you a practical example. Like the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He's the 14th incarnation, I think, not 13, the 14th. That means this dude goes by the moniker, I'm the 14th. Imagine, what's your name? I'm Lotus the 37th. What she's saying, what I'm saying about what I'm imagining is that this woman has people in her life that hold the highest degree of scholarship. That this person is a set of conditions that was in sequence like the wave crossing the ocean, incarnation by incarnation. But it wasn't a self that was born, but conditions that were reforming to be the 14th Dalai Lama. There's no one behind it. The Buddha called that anatta. Very interesting word. Emptiness of centrality. Only conditioned phenomena rolling on. Death there is, but no one who dies, quoting the Buddha. Birth there is, but no one who is born. Suffering exists, but no one who suffers. There is only the felt experience of dukkha. So perception has the capacity to be aware of phenomena, but behind the perception isn't somebody. It's just perception. And so when the cinema lights go on, it's not like you're trying to become one with the universe or to develop your soul. You're trying to overcome illusions of hierarchy. Self in the big capital S is a big tradition all around the world. I'm one with all this bullshit. And I think I can translate rape really well if you love well enough. How many people say that who believe in oneness? How do you eradicate rape from totality? The Buddha wanted that question answered. I think that's pretty rad. Oneness traditions don't want to ask that question. They're basically saying it's your illusion that she was raped. The Buddha said, no, she was raped. But there was no one that was raped, but the pain was rape. I want to remove her, in a figurative sense, ever having to be raped again from this situation. So Buddhism is like radical compassion when you look at it in terms of oneness and selfness. Radical compassion, because it deals with extracting the ignorance that proportionately, when expressed, creates war, genocide, holocausts, and rape, denigration, starvation, isolation, xenophobia, ageism, domination, patriarchy. The root of all evil is separation through the illusion of self, either microscopic self, narcissistic self, or expanded divine self. They're all built upon the same photonic plate, which is anicca, anatta, and dukkha. Anicca, what does anicca mean? Anicca vata sankara, upadavaya damino, upatichua nirajanti, te sam vupasamo sukho. One of the most beautiful chants in Burma. Shall I do it again? Anicca vata sankara, upadavaya damino, upatichua nirujanti, te sam vupasamo sukho. Then it goes on. Anatta vata sankara, upadavaya damino, upatichua nirujanti, te sam vupasamo sukho. Dukkha vata sankara. Anicca, anatta, and dukkha. Those who understand these realities as they are at the finest level of felt wisdom live in the highest happiness. That's the meaning of those words. Summer turned on the lights. Anicca vata sankara. That's what she's saying. She's not turning on the lights. She's saying, get it. It's a cinematic illusion that bleeds and breathes and fucks and kills and commits genocide. Turn the light on of MQ. Next thing you know, immediate F. What does IF mean? Immediate freedom. You asked earlier about going to Burma. I'm into IF. Immediate freedom. Right now awakening kind of thing. Let me be melodramatic, okay? Radical, right now, immediate, felt, deeply resonant, mindfully intelligent, divinely intimate, by design, because I'm mindful, freedom. Let's just bathe and breathe in freedom for a minute. And let's just oxygenate the genetic coding with our willingness to be free human beings, unconfined by the chains of illusions, by imprisonment, by denigration, by blame, by the memory of holocausts. Yes, we love you. We've all been villain and savior. The Buddha said there's no beginning to birth. There's no legitimate person that you can crucify to be the reason for evil. No one can redeem you except yourself by just turning on the lights that summer does, by MQing the space into IF. So the new be here now is immediate freedom, felt presence of immediate freedom. And my teachers who coined the word, very interesting guy. He studied the existential template, if you will, of immediacy. I mean, just go right there. I mean, take the word be here now, which is beautiful, into the felt existential template of interbeingness. Okay? Drop in, and just as we're breathing right now, we don't have to tell ourselves to breathe. There's an instinctual freedom there, right? Allow ourselves to be instinctually free. Right here. Right now. And to occupy that intelligence as frequently as you can remember, reminding yourself to IF yourself. Immediate freedom. That's the only Dharma there is that I can see, and it's called oxygenating your wisdom. That's what my teacher said. Learn to oxygenate your wisdom. Like you're breathing right now. It's animating our molecules. It's animating our senses. Look at us in the room, all together, human beings. Imagine 1,000 years from now. Human beings in a room, oxygenating felt presence. The most important experience that I could imagine in this universe is the immediacy of freedom. And I'll end with this part of the question, is for whatever reason in my heart, Burma wasn't just about why I went to Burma, but it was about the study of freedom. And I had never met political prisoners in my life until I went to Burma. I didn't know what the word really meant. We have them in our country, but I never knew them or met them. But in Burma, when you defy dictatorship, this room filled with people today in Burma, you would be raped, tortured, and imprisoned for 10 years for this situation. There's no place in Myanmar that is safe where these teachings came from. That's the contrast. So I'm going like, oh my God. So I was blacklisted from Burma for 17 years by the dictator after being thrown out 3 or 4 times. No big deal. I mean, it's nothing. And I met with Aung San Suu Kyi in San Francisco in 2012 when she was awarded the Václav Havel Award for Creative Dissent, a very prestigious award. And I was invited to a private dinner with her because we'd done a book together. We hadn't seen each other in 17 years. And my daughter, my beloved daughter, Sarabella, got photographs of her mom and me. And we're all there with Aung San Suu Kyi in this small table. And she'd just been released. And it's like, knowing that she's imprisoned right now, it's really, really challenging to have someone that you love that's 81 years old that's imprisoned and being tortured. I just met someone recently on the border who was 3 cells away from her, and he was released, and only one bath a week. Food's like dog food. No mosquito nets, no windows, no blankets, no bed. Just, it's like, wow, wow, wow. So this, the immediacy of freedom. And so oxygenate is the word that he told Aung San Suu Kyi. No one can take your freedom from you unless you allow them to. So when people ask me, how is she doing? I remember the word oxygen. She's an oxygenator. My freedom is not yours to take. ID, innate dignity. IF, immediate freedom. Just as Dharma practices, innate stature, oxygenate your freedom. So she encouraged me. She said, Alan, you've been unblacklisted by the dictator. Please come back to our country and bring the people's voices to the world. And I went back into the country, no heroics needed, about 50 to 60 times, in which I documented through long-form interviews with my colleague Fergus Harlow, a genius. I interviewed several hundred former political prisoners who had been released, and I asked them the same question. What is it like to be imprisoned, and how do you get through the darkest times? So I spent 12 years asking political prisoners, how do you oxygenate freedom under the most harsh conditions? And so a little bit of my drama and trauma comes from my upbringing and my training to be in such harsh conditions. But and I say this and I'll stop, I'm just a carrier, a humble, inarticulate, flawed carrier of the wisdom of greatness from these people. They're great people.
You are not inarticulate.
I'm not in that same category. I'm not even in remote to that category. I'm a carrier of the voiceless. But remember, those teachings are timeless, and we can bring them everywhere we go, nor do we need to do what Martin Luther King said. Only when it's dark out do we see the stars. You can see those stars even when it's light. Remember, oxygenate, innate dignity. No one can take your freedom unless you give it to them. How many times I heard that in those interviews? The iron bars do not confine me.
How can that message be brought to immigrants who are stuck off in some warehouse with nothing to eat or drink? How do we do that? I mean, this is real time here, and that's just one very small example. We got it in our own backyard.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'm leaving the island soon, coming back soon. Maui's been my home probably longer than I can remember being born. But the other day, I invited my friend Summer, my very precious friend, to, if she would be willing to talk with me about her condition. It's okay to talk about this? For sure. Okay. She's very private. Absolutely. So she is such an amazing friend. I'm blessed with about a radiant constellation. I don't want to number them. I'm just unbelievably adoring, beautiful minds. Summer is one of them. And so she's so attentive and so generous with me and so caring and so consistently elegant in how she just abides in our shared space. It's like one of the most trustworthy, special places of safety for me in my life. I've only got a few, and she occupies one of the 5 thrones at the top of my castle. That's a very special place of trust where you can really be yourself. That's a very special place. And consistently, like, what? No way. Supports and evokes and brings out the best in me. Okay, so halfway through. So I'm leaving soon. I always have this thing, could die at any minute, you know, blah, blah, blah. What could I possibly offer her as a parting gift? And I kind of think this way with everyone in my life that I'm close to. I don't know that I'll ever see you again. What will this moment be? That is, accept this gift of your presence. So I invited her, if she'd be willing to have a conversation with me that was filmed and taped, that I could ask her about what it means to live inside of her disorder. She's got dystonia. Okay, I don't know many of you who know the meaning of the word dystonia, but knowing what I know of it and what Summer knows of it, essentially is me here on the side of Haleakala. Summer is actually at the summit of Haleakala with knowing about dystonia. So my understanding is incomparably shallow, low, sea level to what she knows, and even more so what it means to live in the crater. She lives with a condition that is unthinkably challenging, to the point, in her own words, of torture. Rare do you find Aung San Suu Kyi-like a quality of grace to wear torture so courageously. Okay, so I said, I want to invite you to have a conversation about what it's like to live with your condition, if you would be so willing. And she was so beautifully humble and reluctant and really, and I don't know, what will you ask? And I normally don't do these things. And I said, it's just like, I just feel intuitively that you're such a gift, and you're such a gift to me, that I want the gift of your life, the gift of your engagement with this condition, which is unthinkable. If she chooses to release the film, the 45-minute conversation, if she so chooses, she has the only copy. She will have the only, which I'm encouraging her to do what she wants with it. It's her choice. But at least it's been documented. It is so amazing. Today's talk was kind of interesting This interview is like, oh my God. Oh my God. This is like Viktor Frankl, Mankind's Search for Meaning story. This is the level of courage required to rise up every day with a body in a neurological intersection that does not compute, with unthinkable torturous spasms, contractions, and pain, and continue to live in that level of contraction and talk with me, who likes to talk all the time. And so I said, I've got to give this back to you. And so we did the interview. And I hope if you so choose to reveal it, it's a gift to the world on when I asked Aung San Suu Kyi, I'll close with this, what is the meaning of courage to you? She said it's grace. Courage is grace renewed repeatedly under harsh and unremitting pressure. This interview is cinematic grace on how to rise up in somatic eloquence, emotional intelligence, and in human vulnerability and unpostured authenticity to embrace, engage, to feel myself. And the last thing, never give up. Not only to yourself, but in her case, giving back to people. Because she's a caregiver to a lot of people, both on the mainland who've come and gone, and also on this island. And it's probably one of the most important interviews that I've done. I've done maybe 10,000 interviews in 40 years. I think that gives hope and insight into the importance of love, of courage, of giving back, of facing whatever you're facing with poise, humanity, open-heartedness, unpolished authenticity. It's a miracle. And she delivered something that I feel is a bit of a miracle in cinematic action. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu for that gift. It should be seen in every hospice around the world. It should be seen through every psychedelic assisted dying clinic in the world. It should be seen in every assisted living home in the world. Anyone with dystonia should see it. It should go viral to presidents and prime ministers about what it means to live in embodied dukkha, neurological contraction, dukkha. We all know that Robert Kennedy has a particular form of dystonia, right? In his speech. Summer explains both that and also the complexity of dystonia throughout the body. So I can't wait for this to be released because it's really one of the most beautiful, understated expressions of hope in action. So thank you.
Bravo. Thank you for
Yay.
doing that.
Yay.
Yeah.
Only you could have gotten me to do that.
And it might sound excessive what I just said. It's understated to what she delivered.
Yay.
I believe you.
She's a hero.
If you're into a few more questions, this is my last moment on the island before I fly away.
So we have about 15 more minutes.
What time is it?
About 15 more minutes.
Okay, please take your time. Anything at all, personal, off the track, subtle, not so subtle, whatever.
Where are you going now?
Where am I going?
Needing to go.
I go between Vancouver, Canada, Maui, and Bali. Bali, Maui, Vancouver. And I'm going to Vancouver on very shortly, where I'm really eager to dive into this this World Dharma project, this World Dharma Masterclass, World Dharma Online Institute. I want to film, and with my friends in Victoria at Streaming Consciousness, they have a beautiful studio there, a sequence of the ABCs at the most elementary level, entry level, mid level, next level, more sophisticated level. I want to be guided level. I would like to learn this to become a teacher level. Sequential levels of involvement using AI to put into different languages. I want to document the evidence of my liberation. Not mine, but I've been blessed to meet so many remarkable people. I don't know how I pulled it off, but I've met really a lot of people that are really rad. And I had a president endorse one of my books. I've had 9 Nobel Peace Laureates endorse my books. I did a book of conversations, a bestseller with the most celebrated woman on earth, a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I've met the Dalai Lama. He's written forwards to my children's book. I mean, why me? I want to share the evidence of my journey. I'm a believer to put yourself, like I'm starting, it sounds corny, but I'm starting to get back into my body again. I joined Legree down in Paia and also in Vancouver. I'm working out. I'm wanting to move my body. I'm wanting to be more embodied, stronger, more vital, more. I've seen a naturopath. I want to be more vibrant. I want to live. I'm tired of being on the cusp of dying. You know, I was in hospice for nearly 2 years here. I graduated. You know, I should have died 5 years ago, they told me. You got this incredibly invasive, incredibly swollen, severe. You're going to die any second if you don't get operated on. Really? Do a little ketamine. Next thing you know, I'm okay. 5.5 years later, not only am I still walking, I'm stronger, more vital than ever. I'm a believer in living, not in suffering. My teachers said, Alan, how does a flower open? He's always in trick questions. I said, sunlight? Sunlight helps, he said. Water? Water helps. Soil, roots, darkness, moisture, that helps. Air. Can't miss air. All you Americans over there, like, you love examining the darkness between the petals. But the flower doesn't open that way. Nurture yourself. Nurture your beauty. The word for meditation in Buddhism, bhavana, the beautification of consciousness. Mindfulness, missed the boat. Attention, missed the boat. Beautification of consciousness. Got it. Got it. So Maui, isn't it? And it's not just like beauty, 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 beauty. I don't know if you were, but I loved my autism as a child. I drew and painted, and I just could not stop using my hands. And so I learned what it meant to draw. I love drawing, replicating an eyeball. I went to art school. I lived in Paris. I just would sit and study Rodin sculptures. Just look at those things, the thinker. Anyway, the point being is very few people bring aesthetics, sensuality, and artistry to the Dharma. And the word bhavana is intimately inseparable from aesthetics, artistry, and cognitive pigmentation, and infinite spectrum. Think of it, you've got a palette of colors of consciousness right in front of us. And you've got an invisible brush called mindful intelligence that doesn't even need a hand to engage those colors. And you're an apprentice creating the stained glass on Notre Dame that's bigger than the universe. And you just take that cognitive brush out of consciousness without a hand, and you put it into, I want the color of luminosity. And I want to put a little bit of radiance into that luminosity. I want to put a little bit of tenderness into it as well. How many of us know the color of tenderness? You know what you know where I'm going with this. That level of artistry of consciousness, of acquainting ourselves with the felt resonant frequencies of intimate now-time presence as textures of inner beingness that can be brought forth on the palette of shared existence. That's life, right? That's interrelated wisdom, interrelated Dharma. That's Ubuntu in action. So be an artist. My teacher would say, Alan, you are an artist. Be an artist of your life. He would ask me to hold my finger up sometimes alone with him, up in the air. Who was your teacher, Alan? You know where I'm going with this? Who was your teacher? My fingerprint. What does it mean? No two of us will do it alike. Uniqueness, the biggest fear of people being themselves. Religion, patriarchy, conformity, propaganda. You hear it? Orgasm. Breathing, neither wish to live nor fear dying. Authenticate your breathing. Authenticate your freedom. No two people will do freedom alike. No people will talk in the same way. No two people will kiss in the same way. No two people will hold hands in the same way. We can go into conformity, not quite a popular word, that's a synonym for freedom. So it's very hard to kind of be true to yourself. So I hope all this makes sense. But artistry is really a big deal for me. I just love people who, not that you have to be poetic or a linguist, but David's one of these people. He's so natural. Lily, so natural. Summer, so natural. So natural natural people just naturally show up. I want to dance with you. I want to make love in this space together in a natural, consensual way that is without the need for any kind of orifice exchange. Trans Tantra, sapiosexual cognitive intimacy. That's the Buddha's teaching when you study it, and I'll end here. When you look at the Buddha's 11,000 pages of Pali text, I don't know Pali, I only know a few words, but the English, 11,000 words over 45 years of teaching. They're all about situational circumstances. And the teaching is about what went on in that circumstance that illuminated a particular virtue or a level of freedom. And the discourse is called a sutta because of the virtue and or the level of awakening that took place in that circumstance. You follow? Each of those levels are well discovered and well talked about. But very rarely do you find people who understand the circumstance, the physics of the circumstance, beyond the word of how to replicate the AI of that circumstance. Okay? Seru Upandita studied the frequencies of circumstances. He studied the algebra of the circumstance, the auditory, cellular, existential, vibrational circumstance, the intelligence, the MQ, and taught people how to communicate that between each other to awaken to degrees of virtue and enlightenment. It can be known, and that's known as the Dhamma. And that's a very, very, very rare and precious form of awakening, is to study that sequential tonality, that symmetry, that algebra, that intelligence called MQ, take notes, record it, talk about it, learn about it. What is the color of love? How do you know it in your own being? I would see teachers go around the room. Sir, would you please occupy the most unconditional level of love that you know in your side of yourself now? Don't want to put you on the spot, but I hate that bitch, but what the hell?
I'm good with that.
Okay. I want you to be in a moment of compassion. Please occupy compassion. Okay. Everyone on the island knows the word namaste, right? How about namaste in action, which means I'll pay your American Express card bill this month. I don't want that kind of namaste. Namaste devoid of generosity. Think of that. Think of how conditional we are with our states of mind and how fluent we are with the holy bypassing labels. So being an artist of consciousness is occupying modesty, humility, authenticity, childlikeness, realness, truthfulness, integrity. What does it mean to be someone who will not die? And I'll end here, navigating. Artistry and navigation are synonyms. One is the artistic navigation of conditions towards a desired goal. You want to go to Mana's? People shop at Mana's, right? They don't want to go to Safeway. So you have figured out how to navigate wherever you are to get to Mana's, right? Buddhism, experiential Buddhism, is identical to that. You want to get to someplace, know how to get to Mana's. You got to learn to navigate. And meditation is the art of learning to navigate consciousness. Proactive navigation. Choosing SOMs, state of mind. SOCs, state of consciousness. Learn the art of navigation. Be here now is not being here now, looking at you, eye contact, silence. Silence is a dead game. Navigation, listen, I want to go home tonight. Where do I live? I don't like driving in the dark. You do it well. Dharma is learning the artistry of MQing yourself home, right? Have a goal in your life, a destination. What is your vision? I want to be what? The Dalai Lama, end here, I promise. The Dalai Lama wants to be a Buddha. He's saying, with all those Tibetans, I'm navigating Buddhahood. Hear that loud and clear. It's 14 in a row, or now I'm going to be 40,000th Dalai Lama before I become a Buddha. But I've got one goal in mind, is to be a Buddha. He's a navigator. I would really like to encourage you as we end today to embody the word empowerment, routine, be a guide to your own soul and mind. Have a vision, have a dream, think big, don't play small. What is it that you really want to do despite your age or circumstance? You work out no matter what. I'm going to increase my vitality come what may. I have no particular fear of death. Maybe a little bit. So what? I'm going to do it because this is what I need to do. It's right to do it. Do what is right. Aung San Suu Kyi in her prison cell. I know this woman. I sat with her for months. She refused to sit against the back of the chair. She always sat upright like this. Why? She was trained. Occupy your innate dignity. So the revolution continues, and I'll end with this, I promise. When I asked her, what's the essence of your revolution of the spirit? She said, courage. Courage repeated over and over again under unremitting pressure. And a courage that empowers the betterment of others, which is a very interesting notion of how we live our lives. And she said, Alan, we do it one person at a time. If we do it one person at a time, our revolution will be successful. And think of that woman at 81, alone in a windowless prison cell with no proof of life. For me, I'm speaking about my friend only, not trying to pass it on to you. But to me, it's like what Summer communicated in her conversation. What each of us do in our own. I will do this. I will hold my head high. I refuse to cower. I will walk on. You cannot take my freedom. I love you. Namaste. So from my heart to yours, thank you for listening to me today. Thank you for being in my presence. May this be a blessed day that we share with all humanity, all animals and trees. May everyone that we feel estranged from, that we've judged, let it go. May we all hold arms and hands. I love you, all of you. Those of you who think that you're doing this or that, I forgive you. Please, let's come together in high harmony. Maui is one of the most special places in the universe, not only in the world. And you are such beloved people to be accepting me in the way that you have. And thank you for taking away anything of value. And Summer, thank you for opening your temple. And from my heart to yours, I hope to see you again in this lifetime. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Summer.
Thank you so much.
Sadhu, sadhu.